Welcome to Act Out. I'm Eleanor Goldfield, and this is your tipping point. Back in the Devil's Den, hot. Thanks, global warming. As you may have noticed from the recent updates, I was in Paris this past week covering the activist events surrounding COP21, the UN Climate Summit. Now, as predicted, the agreement reached inside the halls of Le Bourget is as weak as a Virgin Bloody Mary, and just about as useful. Activists, however, were well aware of this eventuality and therefore planned and executed a series of creative, vibrant, and inspiring actions to not just promote climate justice, but to display a strong, cohesive, organized force against idle talk, false solutions, and against the continued destruction of people and planet in the name of profit. This week's episode is a Best of Paris, with no shortage of footage and imagery to give you as succinct and powerful of a snapshot as we can put together. Keep in mind that if you want more, our full videos are up on Occupy.com, and you can see all of the images on my personal site, artkillingapathy.com. Now, before we get started, let me give you a brief description of the actions you're about to see. First off, the Indigenous Environmental Network held a press conference and action on December 6th. Condemning false solutions offered up by international governments and demanding that the rights of Indigenous peoples and planet be respected in the proceedings. See how that went? Dallas Goldtooth, organizer and Dakota Man, explained the event in further detail in our interview with him, which you'll also see. Next up, Art Not Oil took over the Louvre on December 9th, calling for the institution to wipe off oil money and divest from fossil fuel donors. Now, in the grand scheme of global warming, this might not seem crazy important, but the actions of culture directly affect politics. They always have, and they always will. Backing me up on this, we have an interview with one of the Louvre activists and an organizer with Art COP21. Next up, you'll see a slideshow complete with images from a coal diggers event. You'll see what that looks like. Protesting the premiere of climate change denial film Climate Hustle, put on by the douchebag fucksticks at Heartland Institute. You'll also see images from our time in Paris, and more specifically ZAC, the Climate Action Zone. Here comes a truck. A tremendous warehouse space in Paris that served as an activist hub during COP21. Finally, you'll see video and images from D12, December 12th. This day was organized so that activists would have the final word in climate talks, so that the weak, pathetic words of disengaged politicians would not echo last. Several events took place that day, starting off with a wildly creative event born from the ban of protest. You may have heard that due to the attacks on November 13th, the French government let liberté get bruised and beaten in the name of sécurité. Protests were banned. Any gathering of more than 2 people sharing a political message, which would be this or really anybody. Of course, Christmas markets, soccer games, and other crowded events and spaces were just fine. Activists revolted against this ban on November 29th when thousands flooded the streets to mark the beginning of the climate talks, but otherwise had to get creative. Protests became street theater or sing-alongs, and on the morning of December 12th, as activists waited to hear whether the noon protest would be deemed legal by the shit-dicks on high, activists gathered in smaller groups, 50 to 100 per letter, in order to spell out climate justice peace in the streets of Paris. How? By using geolocation via smartphones. Each letter had a meeting point where activists were then split into groups, then sent to 3 or 4 points to check in. Once there, members of each group would upload images and thereby trigger a light to go off on the map, indicating that part of that letter was lit. Furthermore, each letter had a theme tied into the issue of climate justice. I went to the P in peace, which stood for people power. You'll see from the images included and hear from organizer Audrey how activists furthered the creative spark by opting for something other than just signs to mark their protest. Next up, the Red Lines action. More than 14,000 people ultimately flooded into La Avenue de la Grande Armée, just below the Arc de Triomphe. The red lines mark the limits to quote-unquote human progress that this planet can take before rising temperatures wreak havoc on billions. Lastly, you'll see the afternoon action at the Eiffel Tower, where organizers literally fenced in the Champ de Mars with a human chain. Also, using that aforementioned people power to spell out +3 degrees, the supposed rise in global temperatures we're headed for, thanks to that weak agreement. Double that, which is sustainable for life as we know it. So that's a shit ton to get to, so I won't dally here any longer. Just a closing consideration as you look through this episode. Displayed here is hope, but not optimism. This is power and strength and the promise to never give up fighting for people and planet over profit. It is not the belief that it will all work out in the end. Our climate is changing, and it is too late for many, but indeed, the only thing that will save the many in the crosshairs is people power. This show of force, determination, and solidarity, we the people must and are rising up for climate justice, for social and political justice, which are the same thing. The only ones that can knock us down are ourselves. I hope you get many things from this episode, but most of all, I hope you do get that raw hope, stripped of blind optimism, but coated in the power of you, the power of we, the people. Enjoy Paris.
I'm a member of the Ponca Nation of Oklahoma. My colonized name is Casey camp-horinek. I want to say thank you to the people of France for being so gracious to us in their homelands. And I want to acknowledge their ancestors, their indigenous peoples, and think of the spirits that came to join us in our ceremonies this morning. I want to acknowledge the pain of the people of France from the tragedy that was here on November the 13th. As we have said often, we indigenous people understand what it feels to be attacked, to have innocents killed, to have people not care whether you're women or children or elder when they come to look for you. In our case, we have suffered many generations in the United States where I'm from. And there in the United States at this time, the Ponca people in north central Oklahoma are suffering from environmental genocide. The first onslaught of the settlers came with bayonets, with rifles, with smallpox blankets. But now they come with refineries, with fracking, with pipelines. And they kill the air, they kill the earth, they kill the water, and that kills my people. At this time in Oklahoma, we've become the earthquake capital of the world because of fracking and because of injection wells. There's been 5,000 earthquakes there this year alone. As a great-grandmother, a mother, a daughter, a companion, a granddaughter, I've come to join hands, join hearts, join spirits with my relatives from the south, from the north, from the east, and from the west, and asking that all people pay attention to their future generations the same as we have been taught. The 7 generations to come deserve the best in the water, so that the water herself is prayed for every day, all the time by our people, so that the air, so that the earth, so that those things that sustain us are not commodified. We do not buy and sell the air. We do not buy and sell the water. We do not buy and sell the earth. We do not buy and sell the fire. Those are what the true powers of the earth are. They are not those sitting in the United Nations who are denying the rights of indigenous people. Those are simply human beings that are misunderstanding what the Creator has allowed them to be. So we're not asking them to change their ways. They're pitiful. We of the indigenous nations, we're told in prophecy that this would be the time that we would stand up and teach the world how to live in harmony. Because if the rights of an indigenous people are upheld, you're our neighbors. Your children will be protected as well. And we care for all living beings. Those without a voice to speak are speaking through my relatives here, through the sacred ways that each of us holds dear. The Creator put us here for a reason. We listen, and we're telling you the truth.
It was essential for us to have Indigenous frontline communities here in Paris for the United Nations Conference on Climate Change, because people need to see the frontline communities are directly being impacted by climate change, by the increased global temperatures, by sea level rise, and so we have to present our folks, our spokespeople, and put them to the front so that people are understanding that these are the faces that are facing extinction. They're facing the destruction of their cultural lifeways and their relationship to Mother Earth. So that has to be stated first. The three documents that were presented today were basically the solutions or the steps towards the solutions where we need to go. You know, what we've been here for over a week. We've been on the inside for the United Nations conference, and all that's being discussed in there are carbon markets and offsets, and how can we put a price on carbon and use that as a form of credit and exchange, and blah blah blah. It's business as usual, and it's so we as community folks, as frontline communities, reject these false solutions and wanted to provide some solid steps forward, at least put something out there. And so the first document is the living spirit for the living spirit of the. Yeah, it's okay. The first document is the living spirit of the forest, which has been created by the Sarayaku of Ecuador, that advocates that not only should we recognize the rights of Mother Earth, but we have to acknowledge the living spirit of all creation, and that we have a responsibility to uphold that relationship as not just as Indigenous peoples, but as all human beings. The second document that we had proposed, or that we had put forth, was the Keep It in the Ground Declaration. This declaration was created by Indigenous peoples and also international NGOs, and that declaration advocates that in order for us to really take sincere steps to addressing climate change, we need to put a moratorium on all fossil fuel development, that we need to keep fossil fuels in the ground. The last one is the Indigenous Women's of the Americas Treaty, which advocates for direct action. It calls for Indigenous women and women of the world to step up, to take direct action to address climate change, and to offer community-based solutions.
Fantastic. And what do you expect the response to these documents to be, both on the government level and on the people and grassroots level?
Oh, I'm expecting them not to listen one lick. I'm expecting that as always, that those on the front line are going to be not listened to. I'm expecting that the governments, and oftentimes in these conferences, they only like us to be there for our feathers and ribbons, just to be there for press opportunities and not to really listen to what we're saying. So that's why we made it essential to do it out here, outside the COP, to the people, to those that are really passionate about addressing climate change, and to put that call out there that we need to defend Mother Earth, protect her at all costs, and to renew our relationship to the sacredness of Mother Earth. So that's why it was essential for us to do it outside. And so we put it out there. We encourage our allies and relatives across the world to listen to those solutions that were being put forth and help us together step forward to really make some true lasting change.
Okay, and finally, what are the next steps after today and even after COP21?
The next steps, we're going to be here for another week. We have the Indigenous Environmental Network has a whole week of direct actions that we're planning on the outside, in the inside, and just to continue to push out there that these are the people. This is the front line. And it's not just Native folks. We have a delegation of over 100 other folks from across the North America, impacted community justice communities. And so we're just going to try to create as much ruckus as possible to disrupt this business as usual conversation that's happening here. Beyond Paris, we want to take what we've learned here, take the networks and the contacts we hear, and take it home and have that and continue that dialogue of how can we take true lasting steps towards a just transition, towards a renewable society.
Okay, well, fantastic. Dallas Gold 2, thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck with the rest of your actions.
Thank you very much.
So the action outside the Louvre with the black umbrellas, big oil out of culture, just finished. And I'm speaking with one of the activists now. So tell me real quick, what was the idea behind this and why did you guys decide to do it today?
Well, the idea is to kick out oil and fossil fuel money out of art. And today is especially important because we have the COP21 happening and we see a lot of dirty, toxic industry sponsoring politics. So, yeah, it's important to bring this into visualizations. So we start talking about it, that it's not okay. We can't normalize toxic industry in our daily life. And today, inside the Louvre, part of our action was spreading the oil on the floor to make it really visible and walking it through the Louvre. And outside, we managed to get through some barricades and checkups. We managed to get this umbrella through, which I had to check my bag. I was pretty nervous. But I had a decoy bag and another bag and got through. And we made the message fossil-free culture and kicking us, Total and Annie, out of the cultural sphere and saying that we crossed the red line and it's time for people to make that very clear and normalize culture being a place for healing our existential crisis and not by toxifying it further. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Why is culture so important in climate change?
Culture is really important because we've seen that for now we only have political answers and scientific solutions, and we realize that we don't find any real solution for climate change, and we are not asking artists to save the planet, but really want to put the culture on the political agenda of the negotiations and to show to what extent artists can be excellent leaders and stakeholders of creative solutions, and they also have other ways of expression and other means to inform people and to give to touch and reach people by emotion and help developing their imagination rather than just putting like complex information and scientific numbers that nobody understands and everybody feels really weak. We want to demonstrate through the arts that people have the power to change the world.
So you're really through what's happening here at Gatelurik, you're really working on changing people's minds through art, right?
Exactly. We really want to foster a cultural shift toward a culture of ecology, and demonstrate that we as culture are really a good and excellent example of integrating sustainable development in the culture sector, and also to show how artists are really have a leadership in this field.
Yeah, my name is Audrey. I work with Purple Solidaire Action Aid. We are co-organizing the Climate Justice for Peace action this morning. And so what is it today? It's like the last day of the COP. But for us, this is the day where people actually reclaim the power. And politicians have been failing to give us like a deal that can actually address climate justice and the inequality issues that impacted communities are already facing. So what we want to say is that we're going to be all over Paris, so there will be like hundreds and thousands of people, of activists all around Paris, as a constellation of activists in Paris. And we will be like with our placards, with our messaging, all related to our climate justice narrative, saying we will have the last words. And what's going to happen is like for each of the team all around Paris, there will be a dot on a virtual map on the climatejusticepeace.org website. And then when you connect all the dots, a massive letters will appear and will write Climate Justice for Peace. So these pictures are from Gaiden Mondo, a South African artist that we have been contacting, and he's super happy to have these pictures of people who are, like as you can see, in floods, who could be like part of the street mobilization in Paris and like highlight the issue that climate change is happening right now, and like even if politicians are still negotiating and after 21 years climate negotiations they're gonna fail again to address these issues, we want to like highlight the strong look of these people and the faces of these people who are impacted by the floods and by the climate change, and like, you know, stand in solidarity with them, because that's why we are here today.
what's done is done. He's heading for the bright and shining sun.
So, liebe Teilnehmerinnen und Teilnehmer an der heutigen Manifestation. Ich heiße Dieter und ich bin aus Berlin extra nach Paris gekommen, um an eurer tollen Aktion teilzunehmen.